Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this video is on NestJS, which is a Node.js application, and ReactJS, which is a client-side application, and MongoDB, which is a non-relational database. We are going to implement a CRUD operation. Okay, so let's understand NestJS and ReactJS application communication. Okay, here few things we have to understand, that is MongoDB is a database to store the data. NestJS is an application that runs at the server, whereas ReactJS is a single page application, okay, that runs on the browser with the help of JavaScript. Okay, whenever user requests, the first thing, the ReactJS JavaScript code downloads onto the browser. Then UI application gets started running on the browser. Okay, to display the content inside of the website that running on the browser, the React.js invokes HTTP calls to our backend server, which is nothing but NestJS. Okay, so NestJS, on receiving the request from the React.js application, it will communicates with the MongoDB database and fetches the data and return that response as a JSON object to the React.js application. Once the React.js application receives that JSON payload from our Nest.js application, it uses that data and paints that data onto the UI of the Nest.js application. Okay, this is how communication will go on. First, let's understand what is NestJS. Okay, NestJS is server-side application. Okay, here also point mentioning that NestJS is a framework used to develop the server-side application. Okay, NestJS built on top of Node.js framework just like Express. So NestJS nothing but it is a Node.js only. But it is a framework which is built on top of the Node.js, just like the Express, which is one of the famous Node.js framework. So by default, Next.js supports both returning an HTML as a response, HTML page as a response, or returning a JSON like API. That means either it can be used as a MVC application or as a web API application. In this video, we will use it as a web API application. Okay, that means Next.js application built with models and controllers. There is no view here because we will return simple JSON as a response. Okay, so Nest.js works with TypeScript. Okay, the programming language required to write the Nest.js is TypeScript. Now let's try to set up a Nest.js application into our local machine. Nest.js or Java, React.js or Angular, any scripted language to run or set up in our local machine. First thing, we should have Node.js in our local machine. So search like Node.js download, click on the link, okay, and download the installer and install the Node.js. Okay, so Node.js is required. And here you can see this is the Nest.js official documentation website. The thing we have to look is Nest.js CLI. Yes. To create Nest.js application in our local machine, first we should contain Nest.js CLI in our local machine. To install the Nest.js CLI into our local machine, please copy this command and open the terminal anywhere. Open the command prompt anywhere and paste this command and execute so that Nest.js CLI gets installed into our local machine. Once that is done, this is the command for creating the Nest.js project. Okay, so command is like nest space new space project name. Okay, so anywhere in your system, create a folder with any name. Okay, in that folder we have to create both Nest.js and React.js sample application. So here this is my folder. So in this folder I want to create both the applications. So first let's try to create the Nest.js application. So open the command prompt with that folder as a path. Okay, we know the command nest space new and name of your project. I will name it like React 9 CRUD demo. Okay, and enter. So it starts creating the application. So while installing NestCLI, ask us which kind of package manager we want to use. I will opt for npm, and our application got created. NestJS application and a ReactJS application, I am going to use one of the most used IDE, that is Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, so you can download Visual Studio Code Editor by entering Visual Studio Code download in the Google and go to the first link. So based on your operating system, you can download the installer and then download the Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay. So now here our project is successfully created, right? Let me open my project in Visual Studio Code Editor. So to do that, first we have to go to the root folder of our application. This is my root folder of my application, right? So go to that path. Okay, cd name of your project name folder. Okay. Um, okay, now to open this project within the Visual Studio Code Editor, simply enter this command code space dot and enter. See, like this, it will open in the Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, let's understand few important and existing files inside of it. Okay, first thing is package.json. So package.json is just a JavaScript object or JSON-like object. So it contains properties like scripts. So inside of scripts, we will have commands for running the project, building the project, or testing the project. Okay. Next, we have one more property like dependencies. So dependencies are the libraries helps to run our project. Okay, and you will have one more property like dev dependency. Here also you can see the package references. So all these dev dependency packages are required at the time of development. Okay, so that's about the package.json. And you can see tsconfig.json. Nothing but TypeScript configuration JSON file. Okay, here all the default TypeScript building uh, configurations are available. Okay, that's about tsconfig.json. And now if you go to the src folder, and here you can see the main folder, main.ts file. So this is the entry file of our application. And here you can see the default port number for my NestJS application is 3000. Means when we run the application, our application runs under this port number. But the problem we have for this demo is, for this demo, I am specifying why means React.js also runs under 3000 port number only. That means no two application can run under same port number. So what I will do, I will give some other valid port number, just like 4000 or 5000, any valid port number you can give. So change it, make sure to change it, because 3000 will be used by the React.js application. Okay, so that is about the main.ts file. And here there is one more default file, that is app.module.ts file. So NestJS is like a module. Okay, so something like if our application is about weather, so all the weather related logic will be one module like weather module. Okay, and some content is like about news. All the news content will be in another module. Like this, we can divide our code into modules. So in that case, app module is like parent of all modules. Okay, so it is the entry module, and you can see in main.ts file here it is loading app module. That means it is our entry module. Okay, and next thing is controller. I have mentioned, right, we will use our NestJS as a API, right? So in the API, controller means a class, okay, that contains HTTP methods. Okay, each HTTP method will be invoked by the user based on their HTTP request. Okay, for suppose here you can see a get hello method. A user can invoke this method only for the HTTP get request, because it was decorated with the get. Just like we can have a post request put method and as well as delete method. Okay, that's all about the app controller. So here app controller is a default controller file, whether you can use or ignore it, because based on our functionality, we are going to create our own controller. Okay, and you can see one more default file like app.service.ts file. In general, service file to implement logic with the database communication. Okay, so here our app.service.ts file, it is a default file, whether you can use it or you can ignore it. Okay, that's all about default file. So let's try to enable the debugger into our NestJS application. Any server-side application, debugging is necessary for the developers. So let's try to implement the debugger. So to implement the debugger, here you can see a button, run and debug, click on it. And here you can see a link to create a launch.json file. So create it. And this is the node framework, right? Nest.js. So select node, debugger for node. So it's going to create a file like launch.json file. So here you can see a add button here, add configuration. Click on it. And here you can select the available frameworks. And here I want to select Node.js :attach. Okay, only I want to use this. Okay, select it, and it's add new configuration. So remove the default configuration that came with the file. Okay, now this is the debugger configuration for my Nest.js application. Now save it. Now first thing is we have to run our applications in the debug mode. Command to run our application in debug mode, we can look in package.json file. So under the scripts, you can see start dev, not dev, sorry, not that command, debug. So this is the command we have to use to run our application in debug mode. So if I open terminal, here enter command like npm space run space start debug. Okay, enter. Okay, now our application is running under debug mode. Here you can see the debug listening. Okay, and now what I have to do, I have to add a debugger, sorry, breakpoint. So let's go for app controller. For our understanding, I will add a small debugger here. So if you click on this red dot, if it is like this, that means we enable the debugger. Now to run our application in debug mode, click again this run and debug, and here you can see a attach button. So click on it, and here you can see attached in the call stack, and here top also you can see debugger is attached. Now if I try to access my endpoint, so here there is no explicit route specified. So simply if I call localhost 4000, I should get hit this debugger. Okay, so localhost 4000, and here you can see debugger is successfully hit. And here are some debugger controllers like step over, step in, step up, and continue, and disconnect the debugger. If I click on continue, the flow of request will be executed, and you can see output in the website like hello world, which is coming from my get request of my app.controller. And to disconnect the debugger, you can hit this disconnect button. Okay, that is how we have to enable the debugger in the Nest.js application. Okay, now let's create ReactJS application. We know ReactJS is a client-side application and it is a single page application. So let's understand the definition. Okay, ReactJS is a JavaScript library for creating the user interface component. Okay, so basically ReactJS is a component-based application. Component means dividing our code into piece of components, means separate file. Each file will be considered as a component. Okay, so React component contains JavaScript function and they return JSX as the output. So here it describing about ReactJS component. So in general, ReactJS component is a simple plain JavaScript function, okay, and it returns JSX. Okay, JSX is optional, but main thing to return from a React component is JSX only. That means the function either can return a simple string or an expression or the JSX. Okay, but in general, most of the cases we return JSX only. So what is JSX means? It is a HTML, purely HTML. Okay, but when it returns from this JavaScript code, then it is called JavaScript XML, JSX. So React.js effectively renders and updates the components on data chain. So whenever any data in the component changes, it automatically re-renders or refresh the component. Okay, so that's about React.js. So let's try to create the React.js application. So to create React.js application, we should have a command. For that, search like React create React app. Okay, if you click on this website, and here if you scroll down, you can see a command to create your React application. That is like npx space create hyphen react hyphen app space name of your project. So now go to our physical folder where our Nest.js application exists. Okay. Here itself, let's try to create our React.js application as well. Okay. Let me open command prompt again with the path as a this path with this path, and command is npx space create hyphen react hyphen app and space name of your project. I will name it like React v18 CRUD demo. Okay, now enter so that React application gets started to create. And here we can see our React.js application also created, just like what we did for Nest.js. So go to the root folder of our React.js application, and then enter command like code space dot. Then our React application also opens in Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay. So here is our React.js application. Now let's understand few existing files. First thing, I will go to public folder and index.html. So this is the only HTML file that React.js contains. That is why we call React application is a single page application. Okay. And here one thing we have to see, that is a div with the ID root. So whatever content React.js component contains, everything must be rendered inside of this element only. Okay. Next, package.json. We know what is package.json. I have already explained in Nest.js. Same way it will be used here as well. Okay. And next, if you go to src, and here you can see the index.js file. So this is a entry.js file. Okay. So here you can observe some document.getElement by ID, root ID. So this ID we have just seen in the index.html file, right? So by taking the ID, using some React code, trying to render the all the content inside of that div element. Okay, I have already explained it. Everything will be rendered inside of this div element. The logic is here. Okay, and here you can see React.strict mode and app. These are the React component. So for my demo, I can remove this React.strict mode component, and also I can remove this report web vitals. Okay, and finally my index.js looks like this. And here you can see a element, and that is imported from the app file. So that is nothing but the app.js. So here app.js is nothing but the entry component of our React component. Okay. So basically this is a React component. So it is the entry component of our entire application. If I go here inside of it, and if you recall the React.js definition, React.js component definition, it is a function and that returns JSX. JSX means HTML only. The what is difference between JSX and normal HTML means very few. Here only you can see. If you want to use class, here we have to write it like class name. In general, we write class, right? We cannot use class here. We have to use class name. Like that, there are HTML attributes like for. You cannot use for directly. We have to use HTML for. So anything that returns from this JavaScript, we can call it as JSX JavaScript XML. Okay. So this is the entry file. That's all about the default files in our React.js application. Okay. Now to add some styles or to update the UI, I am going to use the React Bootstrap. Okay. So React Bootstrap is a is for React application. It's built on top of Bootstrap because if you want, you can use normal Bootstrap. But normal Bootstrap contains all the classes, right? Everything we have to manually replace into class name, and there are few normal attributes which are not supported by the React. All we have to change. Instead of changing all those things, we can happily use the React Bootstrap, which is built on top of the normal Bootstrap. Okay. So first go to React Bootstrap website. So this is our React Bootstrap website. Here click on the get started, and here we can see the command to install the React Bootstrap. So copy this command so that we can install this React Bootstrap in our React.js application. So open the terminal and install it. Okay, now the package is installed. We have to do one configuration, that is adding the Bootstrap CSS reference onto our index.js file. So here I can configure like import bootstrap min.css file. Okay. Now before integrating or writing some components, first let's run the existing application, how it looks. So the command for run existing application is, if you go to package.json, in the script section, you can see start. So this is the script section, you can see start command, right? That is the command to run our application. So open one more terminal here. So enter command like npm run start. So now you can see under port number 3000, our default HTML content of our React.js application is rendered. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to create a menu like this. Okay. Later, I want to create the pages component. Okay. Any application should contain pages, right? So first I am targeting the menu. So menu means it is a common logic. It should come for every page to entire our website. For that, what I will do, I will create a separate shared component. In that component, I will implement this menu so that it will be shareable to everything. So let me create a folder inside of the src like folder like components and shared folder. Inside of it, we have to create the our component. So now I am creating our first React component. Here there are some rules. We have to use uppercase letter for creating the React.js component. Okay. Why, I will explain. So I will name the component like layout.js. Why? Because if you go to index.js, here component is rendered as an element, app component. And if you see letter is capital letters. So if it is small, then it will like a normal HTML element. So to defer them, React.js make a rule like component name must be capital case. Okay. And we know our component, React component is just a function. So let me create a function that is layout my function name, and it will just return the JSX. So I will return imaginary JSX elements. Okay. These are called imaginary tags. And finally, we have to export our component. Okay. This is my layout component. We have a definition, right? A function that returns JSX. This is normal way of writing component. With the latest JavaScript components, we can write it in arrow function. So arrow function like constant layout and the arrow function and return imaginary text. So both are same. This is latest way of writing the component. So let me remove this traditional way. Okay. Now here I want to render the Bootstrap navbar means menu. So for that go to Bootstrap website and here in the components you can search for navbar. In this website we can see number of examples and how to use them as well. Okay, here I'm going to pick this blue color navbar. For that I'm going to copy this tags, navbar tags. Okay, so all these are React Bootstrap components. Okay, in a single shot, you no need to learn. Just keep in mind these are like Bootstrap components. That's fine. Later on, through your experience, you can understand what is what and in detail what are the properties, what are the events that Bootstrap component supports. Okay, for now, you can just copy from the website and you can slowly understand them. Here I want to remove this container because I want full length menu. If I use container, what will happen means on right hand side and left hand side, some space will be remained. Okay. I want full navbar so that I removed container, bootstrap container. And here I don't want for now any menu items. And here navbar brand is a component that renders like logo or heading. Okay. I will name my application heading like ReactJS and NestJS CRUD sample. Okay. So here we are using navbar component, bootstrap component. That means we have to import the namespaces. So go to website. If I little scroll up, I can see the namespaces. So copy this navbar namespace and add here. Okay, so this is the shared component I mentioned, right? So we know app.js is our entry file. So let's render our layout component here. So remove the existing example div and open imaginary tags and add our layout element layout and see our component namespace is imported. Okay. So if I go to my application, now I have to see the nice menu added to my website. If I go, see here, our menu is coming. So page content should be rendered here. For now, we don't have any pages, right? So inside of these elements, I will add one HTML tag like welcome. I want to display it. So if I reload, that is not showing because I am not reading the content, the child content inside of the elements. To read the child content, what I can do, I can use the props. Okay, so from these props.children, that is a default property that will bring all the content inside of this element tags. Okay, so to render it, I will add a container here, bootstrap container here. Okay, and namespace is automatically, sorry, not here in the layout. Here I will add bootstrap container here. So namespace is here imported, and let me remove the namespace here imported and also remove the some unwanted SVG. Okay, so container add here, and I want to render the container inside of it, the content. So to render any content, okay, I have to use the flower brackets. If I don't use flower brackets, anything I write, the dynamic content will be rendered as a string. So to render the content, we have to use the flower braces, and inside of it, my dynamic content is like props.children. Okay, if you don't use this flower braces, this will be rendered as a string. So to render the dynamic expression, we have to use the flower braces. Now save it, and if I check, I am able to see the welcome message. See, welcome message is coming. So instead of using props, you can destructure the properties directly. For that, open the object and mention the property names. Here children, right? So now I can use children directly. No need to use props dot. Okay, here like this also we can use. Okay, I have given wrong name. Okay, children. Okay, now save and check. Okay, now also coming. That is called property destructure in our component. Okay, so next we are going to create a MongoDB database and we try to communicate with our NestJS application. So what is MongoDB? If you are familiar with normal relational database where we have tables and columns and rows, right? So MongoDB is a non-relational database. Okay. So here is some definition about the MongoDB. Let's understand. MongoDB is a document-oriented database. Okay. So whatever record or if data we save, that we called as a document. So which is classified as a NoSQL database. Okay, no relational database. In MongoDB, tables are called as collections. So try to remember this terminology. So in MongoDB, tables are collections and records are called documents. It stores data in BSON format. Okay, so BSON is a binary serialization of JSON. So it is nothing but a, if you look, it looks like a JSON, but it is a binary format of the JSON. It will store actually. Okay. So the reading from the MongoDB faster when compared to the relational database. Okay. But MongoDB doesn't have relations between the collections. We can't declare whether NoSQL is better than SQL or vice versa because depending on our application requirement and our business logic, we can choose individual database. Some cases we might have to use both the database. So for our demo, to store our sample data into the MongoDB, I am going to use the MongoDB Atlas Cloud Platform. Okay. So if you search like MongoDB, you can see the website for the Atlas MongoDB website. So if you click on it, so here you can see you can start for free for learning purpose or doing any samples. You can use the start. Okay. So on clicking on the startup, it will ask for you to register. Okay. Once you register, you can create a free cluster so that next you are going to land onto the MongoDB Atlas dashboard. Okay. Since I have already registered my cluster or the server, so I will directly sign in. Okay. So after your successful registration, next you have to create the cluster. On creating the cluster, you are redirect back to this dashboard like this. Okay. Now to create a MongoDB database here, so you can see here the cluster zero cluster which I created for free. You can see your cluster once you land on this dashboard. Okay. Now I want to create a MongoDB database and a sample collection. So collection means nothing but the table. Okay. So to do that, you can click on the browse collections button here. Okay. Since I have already created one sample table, it is displaying like this. If you are totally new, here it will display one add button to create your collection. Okay. So where you can create your database. Okay, let me create new database. This database is my old database. So let me create a new database. Here you can see the create button. If I click here, I can pass my database name and collection name, nothing but the table name. Okay, I will name it like NestJS. Yes. Okay, that is my database. And I will name my class like employee. Okay. So here you see my database is created. I want to select it. So if I click on it, my new database gets selected. Okay, so here I have table like employee. So we know tables contains documents, right? So document is nothing but a JSON format, which is a binary format of JSON. Okay, so let's insert a one sample document into my employee collection. So to do that, we can click on this insert document. Okay, and here a pop-up opens, and in that pop-up we can add our document. So it is a generally a JSON format only. So let me add. So if you click on these flower braces, it will open two kind of windows. So let me use this window type. So ID will be auto populated underscore ID. Okay. So here I want a property name like uh, employee name like Naveen. Okay. Role like job role. Okay. So my job role will be senior .NET developer. Okay. And experience. Okay. So this is one document. Now if I click on insert button, okay, if I click on this insert button, new document gets inserted into my employee collection. So click on insert. See here, document is successfully uploaded. Okay, like this, you can play with the MongoDB in the cloud. Okay, now I have set up my MongoDB and I have collection, means I have created the collection and I also added some sample document into it. Okay, now thing is I have to communicate with my database, MongoDB database from my NestJS application, right? So to communicate with the cloud MongoDB with from our NestJS application, we need to create the connections. Okay, so for that, first we have to do few things. Okay, to before creating the connection string, like if you click on this network access, okay, now here you can see add IP address. Okay, so in production, you can register your NestJS application running server IP address to make database communication protected by the IP address. For our demo, we no need of any kind of those restrictions, right? What you can do means click on add IP address, and here it will show allow access from anywhere. That means there won't be any IP restriction. Okay, for my demo, this is the best option. So click on this and click on confirm. Okay, that is the first step we have to do. We have to give the network access. And next thing, if you click on the database access, so you have to create the user. For your application, you have to create one user. Okay, so from here, you can get the username and password. If you click on new, you can see all the options. Okay, I have already created one user. I am going to use that only. So these username and password we have to use in the while framing the connection string. Okay, so that is the second step. Now let's create the connection string. Okay, so go to the database menu again, and if you click on connect, here you can see number of options for connecting with the MongoDB database. Connection with your application. Here my application is NestJS, right? I'm going to choose this option. So click on it. So here is the connection string. You can see my username auto populated, but I have to pass here password. Okay. So I have to use this connection string in my NestJS. So let's go to our NestJS application. Interact with the MongoDB using that connection string. First, we have to install two libraries that are related to MongoDB. That is original Node.js library, that is Mongoose, and another library is Nest/Mongoose library. So if you go to the, so if you search like NestJS Mongoose, okay, so this is the library we required. So here is the command for usage. So here we have to install two libraries. One is original Mongoose and another one is wrapped NestJS Mongoose. Okay, so copy this command. Go to our NestJS application. Open the terminal. So open one more terminal. Run the command. Our Mongoose package is installed successfully. So let's use the Mongoose module. So I'm going to register it in the app module, which is our entry module. Okay. So Mongoose module dot for root method we have to use, and here we have to pass our connection string. So this is our connection string, right? Copy it and paste it here. So it should be given in the single quotes or double quotes. Okay. So here you have to provide your own user password, and here I have to add one more thing. After .NET slash, we have to specify our database, which database we want to communicate. If we don't specify the database name here, what it will do, it will by default searches for the database with name test. Okay, but we have already created database, right? So we can copy that name. So go to browser collections, and this is my database name, NestJS React YouTube demo. Copy this name and add it here. So that is the database name. So here you have to replace the with your password. Okay, now I have added my password also to test whether this DB connection is correct or no issue. Just stop our NestJS application and rerun again. Here, if you have any issue with database connection, you can see error as a log here. If there is no log without error, then it is successful. Here you can see Mongoose dependency initialization in a green text. That means my connection is success. There is no issue with my connection. Okay, MongoDB connection string. So since I have created a collection like employee, right, which is nothing but a table. So I am going to create a new module here in my Nest.js application. Okay, I have mentioned, right, our code can be separated like modules. So here I am going to create the new module. For creating the files, very easy, we can use the nest CLI commands. So now I want to create the module for my employee, right? So the command is nest space G for generate module. Okay, I want to create the module and I can specify name of my module. Okay, employee. I will name my module name like employee. Run it. And here we can see a message like our module is created. Okay, if I go to my file structure in the SRC, you can see a folder created with employee and the with a module like employee module. Okay, so to communicate the collection we have created, right? A collection, employee collection we have created, right? We have to create a schema for this employee collection in our Nest.js application. So that schema will act as a collection in Nest.js application. So it can interact with the MongoDB. Okay. So let me create a class. Schema is nothing but a class, and we will create properties. Those properties are nothing but the properties that are matched to our document. Here we have document, right? These property names will be added in that class. Okay. So to create a schema class, we have a command like So I want to create schema as a class, right? So command is like nest generate. I want to create class. So class. So I want to create inside of the employee folder. So specify the folder path, and inside of the employee folder, I want one more folder like schema. Okay. Inside of that, I want to create my actual class. Okay. So employee. Okay. And I don't want to create a folder for my employee schema class. Okay. So I can specify hyphen flat flag. And I don't want any spec file, so I can specify like no spec. Okay, run it. Okay, schema file got created. So here you can see one more folder schema in that employee schema file. Okay, now I want to change this class name to employee, and first I want to register the document property names here. Okay, we no need to register the ID. ID will be automatically given for us by the MongoDB. Okay, so just copy the property names. So it will be a string. String number. Okay. For now, I have just created a class, simple TypeScript class. Now I have to make it as a schema. So for that, it should be decorated with @schema. Okay. Schema. And let's get it from the NestJS/Mongoose. Okay. Schema. So, and to this, we have options like collection. So here I can specify my actual collection name. So what is my collection name? Employee. So let me copy this name and give it here. I'm just mapping my class with the actual collection at the database. Okay. And now each property must be decorated with the @prop. Okay. So that they will be considered as a document properties. Prop also comes from NestJS. Okay. Add it on every property. Okay, now I have created a normal class and I mapped with the uh, MongoDB schema. So from this, using this class, we have to generate schema and we have to export it. So what I can do, export constant and employee schema. I want to export it from here. Okay, I can use schema factory. So that loads from the NestJS Mongoose and create per class. Okay, which class? Employee class. Okay, and here I can specify the type of my employee document. So export type, I will name it like employee document to represent each document in the collection. Okay, type I am specifying, and it will be either the employee or normal document. So that document must be loads from the Mongoose. Okay, import from normal Mongoose. Okay, document. Okay, finally our schema changes look like this. Okay, so now I have to register my schema class into my Mongoose module. See, in app module, we have registered the connection string, right? But here we have created separate module like employee module. So here we have to register the future module. So here in the future Mongoose module, we have to define all our Mongoose collections inside of this module. Okay. Now I have a employee schema, right? I have to register it here. So here module imports, that is an array, and mongoose module, okay, that loads from the nest slash mongoose. And here we have to use the for future. For future means child modules. For route means app module, okay, parent module. So now I can add a array and I can register the object like each collection. Since I have only one collection, right? So I can register it here. So first we have to give the name. So what I will do, I will give this name only here, register name as well, okay. And the schema, we have employee schema, right? This one we have to register it here, okay. And the collection name, okay. And it is always advisable to give the collection name and this registration name same, okay. So employee, okay. Now in NestJS, to communicate with the MongoDB, we have to write some logic, right? So all that logic we should be added inside of the service file. So first let's create the service file. Okay. So to create the service file, I can use the nest CLI command, nest generate service. Okay. I want to create inside of the employee folder, employee module, right? I can directly specify the simply like this. So what it will do inside of the employee folder, it will create employee.service.ts file. I don't want any spec file, so give flag like no spec. And here you can see inside of the employee folder, employee.service file got created. Okay, so let's go to employee service. Okay, and now in the constructor, we have to define a model. Okay, using this NestJS mongoose and normal mongoose, we have define a model instance so that using that instance we can get some predefined methods for fetching the data from the MongoDB, saving the data into the MongoDB, for updating, deleting as well. So first let's define that model instance. Okay. So in the constructor, let's inject that model, the rate inject model. Okay. So that loads from the nestjs slash mongoose. Okay. To that model, we have to specify the name. So I can specify my employee class name, employee.name. This is going to give the just this name only, employee string name. Okay. For that injectable token model, what I want, private employee model. Okay. And model that loads from the mongoose. And to that, we have to specify our document type. So we have created our employee document type, right? We have to create. So now this is the instance, okay, that give predefined methods for fetching or saving or deleting, updating method. So this is the model instance for my employee, okay, to communicate with the MongoDB, okay. Now our main aim to implement the read operation, okay. So first in our NestJS to fetch the data from the database, okay. So for that, let's create a method. That method fetches all the data from the MongoDB. Okay. So I will name it like get all. Okay. And it will be a async method. I'm expecting async method. Okay. And we know this model helps us to communicate with the database. Okay. So here what I can do, return and await this dot employee model dot, okay, find, okay, find without any input parameters will fetches the all the data from my MongoDB collection, okay, and I can call execute. It executes that method, okay. So this is very simple. going to fetches the all the data from my MongoDB collection, that is employee. Okay, now I have to define a HTTP action method in my controller. So let's create a new controller, okay, in our employee module. So open the terminal and we have a nest CLI command for generating controller, like nest space generate space controller. Okay, and I want to create a controller inside of the employee folder, and I want to name my controller as a employee. So I can simply give like this, and I don't want any test file, so I can specify flag like no spec. Okay, and here you can see employee.controller.ts file is created. Okay, let's go to the employee controller. Okay, so this is the employee controller, and here you can see the endpoint. So localhost, our application runs under 4000, right? Slash employee means it will hit this controller. Okay, so I want to get all the data, right? So I want to write a get method so that that get method only execute for the HTTP get request. Okay, I will write a method like here also async. I will name it like get all. Okay, and to make this method as the HTTP get method, we have to register this method with the decorator at the rate get. Okay, and that must be loads from the nestjs/common. Okay, and if you want to specify employee slash something in the URL, here you can specify all like that. But by default, if you don't specify also not a problem. It is automatically understand this is the HTTP get method. But if you have more than one get method at that time, you should specify the path here in the get attribute. Okay, so here I no need the path, so I will leave it empty, and I want to consume my employee service here. So inject the service into the constructor. Okay, so private employee of type or employee service. Okay, and in our employee service we have a method, right? So return await this dot employee. I will name it like employee service. Okay, so this dot employee service dot get all. So that's it. Our get method is ready. Okay, let's rerun our application. Getting some issue. Sorry, I have created wrong controller. See, it was created outside of my employee folder. So what I will do, I will create again. Okay, sorry for that. So it should be employee OYE. Okay, so now I have got employee controller in my employee folder module folder. Okay, now what I will do, I will simply replace the content what we have added wrongly here, right? So copy this and add it here, and also namespaces, import the namespaces. Okay, and now I will delete this. Okay, I will delete this wrong file along with its folder. Okay, delete it, and some references automatically might be added into app module folder. So let's remove them. So remove this reference and remove this controller as well. Okay, now rerun the application. Sorry for that. Okay, I have created wrong controller. Now rerun the application again. Okay, what I did means I created the controller inside of my employee module. Previously, because of one character missing, it created a new folder outside of this employee folder, and that is added to the my app module level. So I have rectified it. Okay, here you can see application is successfully running. If I access this slash employee endpoint, I must get the sample data which is available in my MongoDB employee collection. I know my port number 4000, right? I have specified explicitly, and employee. See, I'm getting data from my server, my MongoDB server. So for the read operation, NestJS application changes are done because we have completed the HTTP GET request. Now we have to consume this endpoint in our NestJS application. Okay. So sorry, in our ReactJS application. So go to ReactJS application, and now I want to display this data in a table. Okay. So this is like my home page. Means I have to create a new component like pages component. So for that, let me add a folder like pages inside of the SRC. Okay. And let me create a component. Okay. So that is like all employees I will name. Okay. So this is my component file. So this file, I want to invoke the API call. So once a API response received, I want to bind it to the bootstrap table to display it. Okay. So first let's create a function, our component function. Okay. Constant all employee. Okay. You know, arrow notation employees. And for now, let's return imaginary tags. I am all employee component. Okay, some text, sample text. Okay, export default all employees. Okay, so this is my component. So first let's register the route for it. Okay, now I want to create a route. Okay, and that route will be my home page. For that home route, I want to load this all employees. So first we need to install the React Router DOM into our ReactJS application. So search like React-router-DOM. So this is the npm link. Click on it. Okay. So it is a React Router library. So copy the command. Okay, this command, and open the terminal in our React application. Okay, and paste the command and install the library. React Router DOM library installed successfully. So after that, we need to do one configuration in the index.js. So that is, we have to add the browser router element that loads from the React Router package. So that should be encapsulate our app component. So this will inject our all routing features into our React application. Okay. Now I want to configure a route for this. So we know in app component we rendered the layout. So here I want to load my component based on the route so that the child content gets automatically rendered inside of this container, right? So here I can configure the route like I can use routes, okay, which loads from the React router DOM. In that we can specify individual route, okay, child route tags, okay. So here I can specify my URL path with the attribute like path. So I want my all employees component load for home page, right? So I can simply specify slash, that means home path. And I have to map the component for this route. This component should be load. So for that we have another attribute like element. So to this element we have to map our component. So what is our component? All employees. Okay. So that's it. If I run and if I land, I have to see this message. Okay. See, it is loaded. I am all employees component. That means routing is successful. Okay. Now let's install one library, that is Axios, which help to invoke the API calls. Okay. So search like npm Axios and click on the npm link. And here you can see the command for installation npm-axios, copy it. Okay. And go to our React application. Okay. Please keep in mind, now whatever doing, all the things I am doing in the React application only. Okay. And paste the command and install it. Now the Axios also installed successfully. So now what I can do, I can call Axios, okay, for invoking the API call. Okay. So let's import the Axios namespace instead of my, okay, Axios. So this Axios will give uses the default methods based on the HTTP request type. Since our get method, right? So it is giving get. Okay. And here is the URL, right, for get. So copy this URL and paste it here. On success. So on success, I want to read the response dot. Okay. And I want to store the data. Response data I have to store in some variable. That variable I have to loop it in my JSX, right? So I will create a variable like, so what we will think, we can create a variable like something like all employees, right? And initially empty, and whatever data will come, we want to assign it to this variable. Like this we will think. Okay. So response data. But what happens means, for this normal kind of variables, component won't refresh, means initially empty. With that empty data, some HTML gets rendered. Whenever API call completes and this variable changes, the data won't be reflected because the component won't re-render. So we cannot use normal variables. We have to use the use state variables. So use state variables, if the value is changed, then the component gets refreshed. Okay. So we have to use React hook like use state. Okay. Use state. Okay. And here you can specify initial value. For my case, I am expecting empty array as the initial value. And this use state will give two variables, array of two variables. One is normal variable to store this data. Another one is to update the data function. Okay. So we can write like constant array. So all employees, this is my variable. So to this variable, whatever the data is there will be assigned. Okay. And another variable that is like set all employees, which is a function. Okay. This function is used to update this value because we cannot directly update the value into this variable. So we have to use the function. So that is how use state works. So whenever the data of the variable of the use state changes by the set all employees, that means variable change, right? Again the components get refreshed. So that data whatever inside of this all employees gets rendered on the HTML. But here one more drawback. We have written Axios call directly inside of the component, right? So on every change, again API call will get invoked. Again API call get invoked. It's like an infinite loop. So we cannot write Axios call directly inside of the employees. So what we can do, we can use another React hook, that is use effect. Okay. So this contains two parameters, like one is arrow function and another thing is a array of variable. Okay. So what we can do, we can move this logic into this arrow function inside of the use effect. So use effect also one React hook. Namespace not imported. So import the namespace. Okay. The second parameter is the main thing. If it is empty, then this use effect is executes only once. So if at all we want to execute this logic inside of this use effects every time whenever something changes, like our state variable a value changes, we want to invoke, then you have to specify the variable like all employees. So whenever this data gets updated, again this use effect gets executed. So in my case, I want to execute this API call only once, right? So I will leave this array, array empty. Okay, array empty means only once. If you don't specify, then this use effect always executes. Okay, then there is no use of using this use effect hook. So use empty array. Okay, so that is our logic. So I am invoking my API call and I am storing it to my all employees variable also. Now I have to render the data, right? So let's write. So first remove this example text and let me add a bootstrap container. Okay, and some class empty. Okay. Now let me add the React Bootstrap table. So for that, go to React Bootstrap website. So in the components, you can search for table. So here is the table, and there are a lot of example with their usage. So what I will do, I will copy this first example. Okay. So add it here, and I have to import the table namespace. So whatever namespace is here, copy and add it in our sample as well. Okay. So here one more change inside of the Axios, I cannot assign directly to all employees state variable. So I can use set all employees method, and to that employees method I can pass response.data. Okay. So this set employees I am calling, right? It will update this value into this variable. Okay. So now let's come back to our table. So here let me remove this th. So first will be name, second will be role, something like job role. Okay, experience. Okay, and here TRs are dummy TRs, right? Let's remove additional one. I need one thing is enough because I am going to loop them based on my API response. Okay, now here I have all API employees, right? It will be array of data. Currently, I have only one record, right? In the array of response, I have only one record, right? That only one record I will display now. So, but I have to loop it. So to loop it, what we can do? So it is a dynamic expression, right? We have to open the curly braces. And what is my variable? All employees. So this is the variable, which is an array type. So what I can do, I can use dot map. So dot map, what it will do, it will iterate the each item inside of the array. So what I will do, I will use the arrow function like emp, okay, and open circular braces and cut everything and paste it inside of it. Okay, first thing, here should contain a key property. Okay, and that will be a unique, so I can pass my employee ID, emp dot underscore ID. Okay, and this is additional TD I can remove. And here I want to display my name. So open braces, emp dot, I am looping the iterating each item. So every map loops, this tier gets rendered. If I have 3 employee records, 3 tiers get recorded. 3 tier will render. If I have 2 tier will be rendered here. Okay, it map function will loop them and render them. Okay, so I want to render name. So second is role emp.role. If you have any doubt, you can copy the property names from here. Okay. And finally, I want the experience emp.experience. Okay. So that's it. That is my change. What I am doing, I am storing my API response into the use state variable. And I am calling the API in the use effect. And also I am looping my API response data using the map function and rendering the each tier. So if I save and if I navigate, I should see my response get rendered on the Bootstrap table. So let's go to our React website. So this is our React website. If you see here, we can see the table headers, but data is not rendered. So let's inspect elements and there are some errors. If I go to console log, you can see there is a cross origin issue. Why? Because our API is 4000 localhost and our client application, React application is running under 3000. In real time, these will be two different domains. At that time, what happens means cross origin means different origins are trying to communicate. Then server will reject the request from our client application because you are not trusted client to me. So server will reject the request. So now to resolve this issue, server should accept our request. We should enable the CORS. So go to React NestJS application, server application, okay? And go to main.ts file. Here I will enable the CORS. Okay, so this is enabling CORS. Now any client can consume my NestJS application. So what you will do, once stop the ReactJS server, okay, and restart it again. So NestJS is successfully running. Now if I refresh my ReactJS application, I must able to consume my NestJS application API. So refresh and see my data is rendered now to the table. If I check network calls in the developer tools, see our employee API call, and it is a get and 200 OK means status success. In the response, you can see the preview. This is the data coming from my NestJS server. So that's all about the read operation in NestJS and ReactJS using MongoDB application. Okay. Next, we are going to understand the create operation. So our main focus is on to implement the read operation, means creating the new item. For that, we require both ReactJS and NestJS. Okay, so first, let's try to implement the endpoint in our NestJS application. That is nothing but HTTP post endpoint. Okay, so first in our employee service, let's write a logic for saving a new record into the MongoDB. Okay, so for that, in the service, let me create a new method like async create. Okay, and this method should contain our employee data as my payload, right? Now what I have to do means I have to make this normal payload as a document type. Okay, so constant new employee new this dot employee model dot employee model and open braces. To that braces I can pass the my employee data as a document data. Okay, so now this model will create a instance of the employee model. Now with this instance, I can call a method like save. Okay, so here we are creating the instance, right? Using the employee model and using our payload. So it should be awaited. Okay, that's it. So if we invoke this method, our payload gets saved into the MongoDB. Now let's implement the HTTP post action method in our employee controller. So go to our employee controller Okay, so I will write method like async create. Okay, and it should be decorated with the @post attribute because this method must be invoked for only post request. Okay, so here you can see the post comes from NestJS/common library. Since I have only one post method, right? So I no need to give extra path. Okay, post endpoint path. Okay, if I have multiple, we should specify definitely one method must contain the extra path. Okay, so by default, based on the request type, okay, the action method gets invoked. Now here what I can do, I simply return this dot employee service dot create method. So here we have to receive our payload, right? So from the body, request body, we have to read. So for that we have to use @body. Okay, that also loads from the nest/common library. Okay, so I will name it like employee of employee. Okay, so we have to pass the payload to our service method. Okay, so that's it. Our HTTP post request. Okay. Now we have to consume this in our React.js application where we have to create a form. That form is for creating the new item. Okay, so let's jump into our React application. So now in our React application, let me create a new component. Okay, in that component we have to create the form. So go to pages folder and create a new component like add employee.js. So we know how to write component, right? Function. I'm using the arrow function, okay? And name of my component, add employee, okay? And for now, let's simply return imaginary tags, which is nothing but JSX, okay? And export default add employee. Okay, we are ready with our component. Now let's configure a route for this component. So we know in app component we are adding the routes, right? So here let's add one more child route element. Okay, and here I can specify path for my add employee component. So I will give a path like add employee. Okay, and we have to map the component for the element attribute. Okay, okay, now let's get back to our add employee component. So first let's try to add the form. Okay, so let me add the container first. Okay, and class, I just want a margin top. Okay, and in that let me add a row, bootstrap row, and the column. So here I will give some styling like, so column name not imported, please import it. Okay, and call MD8, 8 columns. I want to display the form and offset MD2 means on both sides I want to leave 2 columns as empty. That means I want to center my form. Okay, let's define the title with legend element. Okay, add new employee data. This is my form. Okay, let's get the form controls from my React Bootstrap website. So here you can see on the React Bootstrap forms. Okay, so here let me copy one of the example. So let me copy this one of the form group element, sorry, controller. Okay, let me add it here and let me modify it. I don't want this form text and I will name it. For now remove it and remove the label it should type should be text. So here this form control on rendering will render as a text box. Okay, it's a bootstrap control name, component name, but when it renders as a text box. Okay, and remove the placeholder. Since I have name, job role, and experience, right? Three text fields I required. So just copy and duplicate it two more times. Okay, and I am using form, right? I have to import the form namespace. Okay, now here I will give control ID name. So this will be name of the employee and it will be like job role. Okay, so job role. Okay, and this should be experience and experience. Okay, so this is my form. So now to read the form data, for this demo, there are different ways for reading the form data. One of the best way is using the React hook forms. It is a third-party library. So, but I don't want to deviate completely from the simple CRUD operation. Instead of using that library, what I will do, I will simply use another way, that is one of the inbuilt React form hook, that is useref. Okay. So using that useref, I'm going to create a variables for each form control, nothing but a text box. Okay, so that I can map that variable with my form control. So I can have a control over this form control if I map it. Okay, so first let's declare the variables. So constant name, I mentioned user ref. So it is a inbuilt React hook. Okay, and constant job role. Okay, constant experience. Okay, so these are the user of variables. Now I should map them to my text field. So to map them to the text field, we know form.control renders as a text field. So to map it, I have to use the attribute like ref and use expression flower brackets and pass the variable name. Okay, like that for three fields. So ref, it is for job role, right? So let me copy the variable name and assign it to here. Same way, ref experience. Okay, so now what we did means we are extracting the reference of this text field through this variable into our component. Okay, so from this I can prepare a payload to my HTTP post request. Okay, so now whenever user submits the form, we have to invoke a method, that nothing but the handler, right? So first let me add a button here. So button like, so let's check whether button is imported or not. Button is imported. Okay, so variant primary. Okay, type I want to use button. Okay, and on click. Okay, this is the event. To this event, I have to register a handler. Handler is nothing but the method in the component that gets executed whenever we click a button. Okay, let me create the handler here. So constant add employee handler. Okay, add employee handler and an arrow function. So this function I have to register to my button click event. Okay, so now here I have to invoke my API call. So before invoking API call, I have to prepare the payload. So where Let me use let payload. Okay, we know properties, right? I can copy it from here, exact names, because here I am binding, right? So copy them here. Okay, name I need, role I need. Okay, I'm just preparing the properties and the experience. Now to populate the form data into this payload object, what we can do means, so these are the user of variables, right? So these are mapped with our form control, nothing but on rendering it is a text field. So it will have control over the text field. So we can read the value, whatever the data user entered instead of the text field. Okay. So we can read like user of variable dot current dot value. So this will fetches the user entered form field value through this variable. Okay. Same way. So here variable is job role. So current dot value. And here experience I want it to be number. So I will convert it because by default current dot value will gives us only the string value. Okay. So job dot sorry experience dot current dot value. So now we have prepared the payload. Now we have to invoke the API call. So what I can do means Axios, okay, that imports the Axios library. Here you can see. So now it is time to invoke the HTTP post call. So for that Axios will have a default method like post. So this method invokes the HTTP post request. So here URL will be the same. So I will copy from my all employees component. Okay, copy this URL, add it here, and now we have to pass the second parameter as a payload. Okay, to this post method we should pass. Okay, so once success, I want to simply navigate back to my home page. Nothing but all employee components I want to navigate back. Okay, so to navigate back, I can use a variable I will declare like navigate, which is of type use navigate. So this use navigate come from the React router DOM. Okay, so now I can use this navigate variable for my redirection from one component to another component. Okay, so in this we should pass a input parameter. That input parameter is nothing but the route value. Since our all employee is a home component, right? We have to specify simply slash. Slash means home page. Okay. So that's it. That is our most of the logic in our component. Okay. Save everything. So if everything good, the record must be added into our MongoDB. So now we have to navigate, initially we have to navigate from our all component home page to this newly added add employee form, right? So for that we will add a button. So on button clicking from the all employee component to add employee component navigation logic we will write. Okay. So for that here let me add a row. Okay. And call, and let's check whether those are imported or not. Let me import the row. Okay, and let me add some styling. MD4 offset MD4. Okay, now inside of this column let me add my button. Okay, so let's check button imported or not. Imported, fine. So variant equal to primary and type equal to button. So I have to write the on click. Okay, now here it is a very simple logic I have to implement. right? Like navigating from this all employee component to add component. So I no need to create a additional handler here for implementing that single line of logic. So what I will do, I can directly write a arrow function here. Okay. So inside of this, we have to write whatever logic we want. So I want to navigation, right? So we know how to navigate, right? We just did in our add component. Same way here also, let declare a variable like navigate. Okay. Use navigate. Okay. And I can use this variable directly here in this arrow function. So I have specified, right? The input must be the path, URL path. So let me copy the path from here, app component, okay, and add it here. Okay, that's it. Let's test whether we are able to create a new item or not. So first let's run our API project. So npm run start. And here we can see our NestJS application successfully running. Same way, let's run our React application also. So command is like npm run start. And here you can see our React application is running. And here you can see button. I forgot to give the button label. So let's go to my React.js application and give a button label like add new employee. And also check in add component, there is a button, right? Submit button. There also we haven't given. Okay. Let's give label like add. Okay. Now let's go to our website. See, now we can see the add button here. If I click on it, I must go to add employee component where we have a form. So let's click it. And here we can see the form. So let me enter some data. Okay. New employee. Okay. So job is like associate React Dev, okay, experience too. So before submitting, let me open the net developer tool to see the network call, okay. And now click on add. And you see, I navigated back to my home page and you can see my new item. And if I go to my network calls, the first network call, which is the HTTP post call, okay. Here you can see request method and post, and you can see the payload, right? So that means we have successfully added our record and we navigated back to our home page. If you refresh also, the second record will be available. That is because our data is successfully saved into the MongoDB. Okay, so that's all about the create operation using Next.js and React application. Okay. Next, we are going to focus on update operation. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support me by liking my video as well as by subscribing to my channel. Soon, we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off. Now, our main focus is on update operation. Okay. So let's go to our Nest.js application. So for update operation, we require two endpoints. One endpoint is we have to fetch the record by ID so that that record data will be displayed on update form. Okay, that means we need a get request by ID. And another endpoint is HTTP put request, which is the actual update request. Okay, so first let's try to create the get request by ID. Okay, go to our service file. Here let's create a one more method like async. Okay, so I will name it like get by ID. Nothing but this method going to fetches the one of the document based on its ID value. Okay, and it should contain the ID value as a input parameter. Okay, So what I can do, I will return await this dot employee model dot, okay, dot find by ID. There is one more method where it will get the particular document based on its ID value. So to this find by ID value, we have to pass our ID, okay, and simply call AXC. So that is the main logic for retrieving the document from the MongoDB based on the ID value. Now let's create a endpoint. Okay, HTTP get by ID endpoint. Okay, now let me create here one get method async. I will name it like get by ID. Okay, so we know get request must be registered with @get attribute, right? But here I already have one get attribute. So I cannot leave the get attribute with empty parameter because I have to specify some more additional route for this endpoint, because based on controller route, with the help of HTTP request, controller can execute only one method. If it contains two methods, okay, with the same route, then it will throw error like ambiguous get identifiers. Okay, so to avoid that ambiguous, we have to specify the path. So anyway, I need to pass my ID value in the route, right? So I will define some dynamic placeholder in my URL. So I can define /:ID. So if anything that is prefixed with colon means this is placeholder, dynamic placeholder. Okay, this is not a fixed URL route. A dynamic value can be, any value can be uh, added to the route. Okay, but we are expecting ID value. Okay, now to read this dynamic value into our method, we can use another attribute inside of the method like param. Okay, that loads from nest/common. You can see here param. Okay, and to that param, we have to specify the dynamic placeholder name, nothing but this ID value. Okay, and I have to store it into some variable. Okay, like ID string type. Now I can simply return await this dot employee service dot get by ID and pass the ID value. Okay, let's test whether we are able to get the particular record based on the ID value or not. Okay, so let's stop our server application, rerun it. Okay, my server application is up and running, so I can test the get by ID endpoint. So first, let's access our uh, get request, which returns all the response for us. So 4000/employee, right? Okay, this is my original get request, which returns all the response. Now let me frame a get by ID URL. Okay, we know ID must be passed as a part of the URL. So let me copy one of the ID and enter here. See, now I am able to get the only particular object, right? So that means our get by ID endpoint is working fine. Okay, now let's write our logic for implementing another endpoint, that is HTTP put endpoint. So for updating, we have to write a logic in our service file. So go there. Okay, so let me create a method like async update. Okay, and here my method contains input parameters like ID that specifies which document we want to update. Next, the payload. Okay, the data we want to update into the MongoDB. So now return await this dot employee model dot find by ID and update. So this method going to find the particular document based on the ID value we will pass. Okay. And then second parameter, we have to pass what is the data we want to update. Okay. Next, I can pass additional configurations like new colon true. That means after updating, the newly updated value document will be written as a output. If I don't specify this, by default it will be false. If we return like this, when it is false, then old record before updation value is there, right? That record will be written. Okay. So this is my logic. Now let's create a endpoint for it. So update means put. So let me create a one more method like async update. Okay. It should be decorated with the @put decorator. Okay. So let's import that loads from the NestJS/common. Okay. Now to this put, I have to specify the some dynamic placeholder because I want to read the ID value in the URL. Okay. The record that we want to update. So we know how to read the dynamic placeholder. We have to use the param attribute and specify the placeholder name, which is our ID, and we have to capture the value into the variable. Okay. Next, the actual form data, the data we want to update, that must be read from the body. For that, we know we can use @body attribute. Okay. And we'll name it like employee. So now what I will do, simply return await this dot employee service dot update. So pass both the ID and the employee payload. Okay. So that is our endpoint. So we are done with our server side changes. So let's stop the server again and rerun it. Make sure whenever we change code, make sure to rerun the application. Okay, there is something happening here. Okay, 2 times it was imported. Let me remove 1 time. Okay, save it and rerun the application. So my application is up and running. So let's move to our React application where we are going to create an update form. From there, we can update the item. So let me move to my React application. So for updation, let me create a one more component, page level component. Okay. So inside of the pages, let's add one more component that is like edit employee. Okay. And we know how to create the component, constant component name and the arrow function. Return the JSX. For now, return imaginary tags, export default edit employee. Okay. So I have the component. Now we have to register a route for it. So go to our app component, add one more child route. Okay. And path, I will specify path like edit-employee. Here I want to define dynamic route placeholder just like what we did in NestJS. In React also we have to do. Why I have to do means once I entered, somehow I need to get the particular ID which we want to item to update, right? So one of the best way is we can pass the record ID in the URL. From the URL we can read into the component. From there we can populate our form data. So that means our edit URL must contain dynamic placeholder for ID as well. In React also, to specify the dynamic route placeholder, you can use colon ID. Okay, this is the dynamic route placeholder ID. Okay, and now let's map the component. So edit employee component. Okay, now let's go to our edit component. So here let's first try to populate the form with the record. So for that, first let's try to read the ID value from the route. So to read the ID value from the route, I can use param, that is a React router DOM library. Okay, and from this I can read my dynamic route value. Okay, here I have to use the dynamic route placeholder as a variable. What is my dynamic route placeholder ID? So this name should be used as a variable here. Okay, now I can directly get the ID value. So from this I can invoke the API call, right? So I will use effect. Okay, so inside of it I want to invoke the API call. So Axios. So I want to populate form, right? So get call I need to invoke. But this time I have a dynamic value which is nothing but a ID value. I have to pass it to the URL. So for that what I can do, so copy this URL. Instead of double quotes, we have to use the backticks. So using backticks, we can frame the dynamic string. So specify slash and dollar and flower brackets. So inside of these flower brackets, we can specify our dynamic URL value. Here my case ID value. Okay. Then once I read the response, I have to bind it to the form. Right. So now what I will do, to save some time, let's copy most of the code from our add employee. Okay. So first thing, let's copy all the namespaces. Mostly we require all the namespaces, whatever here we have. So edit them here as well. Okay. There are any duplicates, remove them. Okay, that's all. That's all good. For now, there are no duplicates. Okay, Axios is duplicate. Remove it. Next, copy the useref variables. We know that useref variables is used to bind for the form to retrieve the user entered data, right? So copy these useref variables here as well. Add them here. Okay. Now let me copy the entire form. So here HTML I can copy. Okay, and paste it here. Let's do some changes. For now, I don't have any click event for this is update here. Okay, not add update here. And I can bind these variables as it is, ref variables to read the form data. And here I will update the heading like update employee data. That's it. My changes. Okay. Now I have to push my response data to my form. So what I can do means let assign the data response data to a variable like data. Okay. Now since name, job role, experience are the user of variables which are mapped to the form controls, right? So I can assign dot value equal to data dot name. Nothing but this response properties I am binding. Okay. You got it. So same way, let's do for all. Job role dot current dot. I am pushing the values to the text fields. Data dot role. Okay, experience dot current dot value equal to data dot experience. Okay. So I believe this line of code will populate our form. So now what I will do, I will add a edit button in all employees so that when the user clicks on that edit button, we will navigate it to our edit component. So go to our all employees. Let me add here one more column, okay, like actions. I will name it like actions. And in the TDs, we will have button like edit. Okay. So button variant equal to primary. Okay. Type button. So on click. Okay. And it will be a edit button. For each record, this button will come. And here for on click, what I will do, I will create a arrow function because it is single line of code. I am not creating one more handler inside of the component. So I will directly call. So here for add navigation, we have written some logic, right? Same kind of logic we are going to use for edit also. So copy that navigate variable and add it here. But here it should be a dynamic value because I need to generate URL along with the ID value. So remove the double quotes and add the backticks. We know backticks how to generate the dynamic URL. Okay, emp._id. Okay, now if I check my website, if the user click on edit form, I am hoping the form must be populated with the data that need to be edited. Okay, let's go over here. Now we got the edit button. If I click on edit button, sorry, I have given wrong route here. If you see add employee, it is coming right. So path I have given wrong. It should be edit employee. Okay. Now check again. If I click on edit, okay, I am loading form, but data is not coming. Let's check again. Edit. API call invoking or not. Okay, API call getting 404. Okay, URL given wrongly. Okay, where is it? Edit employee, double E, one E is missing. Okay, let me check again. See, now data is populating successfully. Okay, now if I click any item, if you edit, the form gets populated. Okay, now we have to work on consuming the HTTP put API in our React application. Okay, now go to our edit employee component. Let me create a handler here like constant update employee. Okay, employee handler, just a convention styling with the handler. Okay, and this should be registered with my update button click. So I can directly give like this. Now here, let's try to prepare the payload. So from the add component, I can copy a piece of code for preparing the payload because same variables I am using, right? User of variables. So I can use them here. Now I can call the put request. Axios put. Axios provide all methods based on the HTTP request type. Okay, we can use directly them. And here our URL must contains dynamic ID value and it should pass second parameter nothing but the payload. Okay, on success I want to navigate back to my home page just like what we did in add component. Okay, so I can create a variable like navigate, use navigate that loads from the React router DOM, use navigate. So I can use the variable navigate and specify the path like slash which is a home path. Okay, now test whether we are able to update the data or not. Let's edit this record. Let's try to edit the experience to 4 years and let's open the network calls also. Okay, to check the update API call. Okay, click on update button and here see data is successfully updated. And if you check the network call, see this one, put request and URL that contains the ID value. And here you can see the payload we want to update into the MongoDB. So from this we can understand update operation also successful. Next we are going to focus on the delete operation. Our final goal is to implement the delete operation. Okay, so go to our NestJS application. So delete operation means we have to add the delete endpoint in our NestJS application. So go to our employee service, try to add a logic for deleting a document from the MongoDB. For that, let me add a method, okay, async method, delete method, okay, and it should have a input parameter like our ID value. Okay, now what I can do, I will simply avoid this dot employee model dot find and remove, okay, ID. This is going to remove the specified ID document from the MongoDB. Okay, that's our method. Okay, now let's create the HTTP delete endpoint in our employee controller. Okay, so here let's create our action method like delete. Okay, and as usual, it should be decorated with the request type. So here it is delete, right? So at the rate delete method we have to use. Okay, and it should contains the ID placeholder, dynamic route placeholder, and we know we have to read using the param decorator to read the dynamic placeholder from the URL. Okay, so ID string. Okay, now I can simply call my employee service and delete method and pass the ID value. Okay, that's it. That is our endpoint. Now let's run our server application. Okay, our server application is successfully running. Now let's get back to our React application. Now here for adding a new item, we have created a form. For that we have created separate component. For edit also we have created separate component. From the delete, we will create a component, but it is not a page level component. Okay, I will create a component which is a shared. Okay, so on clicking the delete button, we will show some confirmation pop-up, right? That model I am going to create as a shared component. Okay, for that, what I will do, I will create the shared component inside of the component slash shared folder. Okay, I will name my component like delete confirmation. Okay, and we know how to write the component constant component name and arrow function. Let's return imaginary tags for default delete confirmation, right? Now the thing I want to add the React Bootstrap model into this component. So go to React Bootstrap website component section. Okay, here look for the model. So here is the model and there are several examples here. You can pick one of it. So I'm going to pick this example. Okay, model, add it here and let's import the model namespaces. So here I'm going to use both model and button. Okay, so copy those two and add it over here. Okay, so I want this component should be a shared, means it should be a generic. Any other uh, components in our application can use this delete confirmation. That is the main idea. So everything will be every information in this component will be input from the parent component, so that we can make it as a generic component. Okay, so here first thing you can see a property like show. So in general, show it receives Boolean value, true or false. If it is a true, model will be displayed. If it is false, model will be hidden. Okay. So all these properties I want to read from the parent. So what I will do, I will read props property, and I will create all the custom properties for the existing properties and the events. Okay. So here props dot show model. So this is my custom property. I am expecting. Okay. I am assuming this property comes from the parent component. Okay. So this is one prop, and show I have explained it is for hide and show the model. And here you can see a event on hide. So on hide means here on hide event raised when we click on the cross close button. On a pop-up on right hand side corner we will see a cross button, right? In general, that cross close button. So that will raise this event. So for now what I will do, I will simply give the arrow function, because the functions also I am going to give the reference from the parent itself. Okay, for now let me assign a simple empty arrow function, and let me give the title from my parent. So props dot title. So these are all my imaginary properties. Okay, later I am going to use them from the parent component. Okay, same way here, let's do a dynamic body content. Okay, like props dot body. Okay, here also handler is there. For now give the empty arrow function. This is a close button, and here you can see some save changes button. So I will rename this button like confirm delete. Okay, and here also for on click, for now give the arrow function. Okay, so now I have to use it in my all employee component, because delete button is in all employee only, right? When we click on delete, model have to display. So let's open the all employee. Okay, so here let's render the delete component. Okay, so I can see namespace is imported. So what are the properties I have to pass? I can pass the title. Here title I have using, right? Title. So I will simply directly assign the string. Okay, instead of assigning some expression, I will directly assign the string. So I will name it like delete confirmation. Next thing, we have another property like body, right? So body. So here I will write like, are you to delete this item? Okay. And next we have hide and show of the model. So this is the show model property, right? So what I will do, so here is the show model. So this is the our input property to the delete confirmation. So to this we have to pass some Boolean value. So here I want to pass the Boolean value dynamically based on my click events. Okay. So I am going to create a one use state variable. Okay. Use state variable. Initially pop-up should be hidden, right? So default value always false. Okay. So I will name the use state variable like constant. I will use same name. This input property show model is there, right? I will use same name. If you want, you can give the different property name. But what I will do, I will use same name. Okay. This is the variable of the use state variable. And we know use state variable means there will be a method, that is the second parameter, set show model. Okay. So now what I will do, I will pass this show model to my show model property. Okay. So this is going to pass the Boolean values, true or false, to the delete confirmation model. Okay. Now I will write a method handler that is like delete confirmation model. Now let's create a handler to open the model. Okay. So when I click on the delete button, I have to open a model. So first let's create a button here, delete button. Okay, let me duplicate this button, but this should be delete. Here this won't be navigate. Okay, remove this, and I will give the danger. Okay, red color, and let's give here also danger confirm delete to display in red color. Okay, so I have to register an event handler, so that handler should open the model. So for that, I will write a handler here. Okay, constant open delete model handler. Okay, so here I can set show model to true, so that that value will be passed. So pop-up will be displayed. Okay, along with show model, I want to store the item ID that I want to delete. Okay, that means I will create a one more state variable to store the item ID that we are going to delete. Initially, its value will be 0, means nothing to delete. So I will name the variable like item ID to delete. Okay, and set. So that is my set method. Now here what I will do. So now this open model will have a input parameter like ID, and I want to set that value to my item ID to delete. Okay, I am setting that value. So now this should be invoked for our delete button. So here inside of the arrow function, open braces and call ID. We have created the handler for open. Same way, let's do close. Okay, for model close. So constant close delete model handler. Okay, what I will do, I am going to use these set variables. Okay, so closing means we are canceling the operation. So set the value to 0 and set show model to false, so that on setting show model to false, model will be hidden. Okay, now but this close event must be invoked in the delete confirmation, right? So we have to pass it. So what I will do, I will pass this as a one more input parameter. See here, this right hand side is this our component method. Left hand side will be the delete confirmation input property. If you want to give different name ABC, you can give. This is the method reference to the delete confirmation model. But what I am doing, I am giving both same names. Okay. Now I can read that method through props. So for close here, we have to write right props dot and that method. Similarly, for close button also, I can use same method reference. So here, invoking the parent method, here we are getting just the reference of the method. Okay, actual logic exists in the parent component. Okay, now let's test whether we are able to open the pop-up and closing the pop-up or not. Okay, so prop, somewhere I did prop. So here it is props. Okay, next issue. ID is not defined, all employees. Where ID not defined in the all employees? ID defined. Okay, here we should pass employee dot underscore ID. Okay, and now it should be good. Yes, we got delete button also. If I click on delete, see, I am getting the confirmation model. See, this heading, all these are dynamic values. Now, if I click on this cross button, model is closed. Now, I click on this close button, model is closed. Now we have to work on this confirm delete handler. Okay, that means there we have to invoke the our delete API call. So here let me write a one more handler. Okay, constant confirm delete handler. Okay, so here what I will do, I will call Axios Okay, this dot, sorry, Axios delete method, right? So delete method, and we know our delete method have some dynamic value, right? So if I go to either update component or edit component, let's copy this kind of dynamic URL with backticks, okay, and add it here. But our delete value is in item to delete variable, okay. Now on success. So on successfully deleting the data at the server, here we have to remove it from our table also, because here we are not refreshing the page after deleting. So we have to remove it logically in UI side also. So where the data coming from, the data is actually stored in the set all employees. So I can use all employees variable. So I can use this state variable. I have to update this state variable. So what I can do, set employees. When we want to set the data to the useState variable, we are directly assigning, right? We can do another way also by inputting a arrow function, okay, like this. So this arrow function will have a one default parameter, that is existing data. Existing data means nothing but the current data available in the state variable. So set employee state variable is all employees, right? So what is the data existing in this variable will come as the input parameter when we use the arrow function. So now I finally what I will do, from that existing data I am going to remove the item we are deleted. Okay, so filter underscore id not equal to item to delete. Okay, and finally I can call the close delete handler from here. Okay, so because I want to reset back to this one and I want to hide the model, right, once the delete is completed, so I am directly calling the close delete model handler. If you are confusing, you can just duplicate these lines of code here. Okay, now let's test it. Now click on delete. Now open network calls. Okay, now if I click on confirm delete, okay, I haven't registered the event, right, for confirm delete. So now this confirm delete must be passed to our child component. So here I can pass like this, and for confirm delete, let's use it props dot confirm delete handler method reference. Okay, now if I check again, okay, reload the page. Okay, now click on delete. Now click on confirm delete. See, record is deleted. If I check network calls, see, this is the delete API call and it is successful. If I refresh the page also, I will get single record only because we have deleted the second record successfully. So that's all about delete operation. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support me by liking my video as well as by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then,